a logical and thinking approach.
As previously mentioned, all four of the content skills or foundations are carefully integrated into the projects that students do. So for example, with the maths project, the maths side of the project, students go out and interview people in the workplace and gather data on employees' occupations, skills, training and education. Data is sorted and collated into MS Excel and is then used to answer hypothetical questions about career decisions. Furthermore, as can be seen here, this is a step-by-step video showing students how to collate the information into the Excel sheet ready to include in their career website. The career website, in fact, forms a sort of an e-portfolio for students to show some of their skills. So this shows not only their math skills, but also their ICT skills, communicating and interviewing and presenting the data that they've collated and looked at. Ramsden argued in 1992 that assessment is about measuring student learning as well as diagnosing specific misunderstandings so that we can help students to learn more effectively. The CRIS course decided in the design decided to rely rather than on purely standardized tests which focus on skills in isolation, to use an alternative approach looking at skills that have some value beyond the classroom. The main underpinning idea of this is to provide students with an opportunity to practice and recycle. The assessments for the career project include an in-class writing, 10-minute group presentation and a career website. Instructions and rubrics were given very carefully to students and made available in the learning management system. So the idea was it was discussed as a group. There are activities around the instructions and then students were able to download the instructions to access as a at a later date. So here, for example, 10-minute presentation. Students had the date it was going to be given on and highlighted aspects such as the fact that everybody in the group must speak. So it was looking very much at group dynamics and participation. The students formed groups of 3 or 4 and then selected a topic from a list that ranged from steps for writing CVs to a career that group members were all interested in. They used a fact sheet along with all the strategies that they learned as part of the career workshops and department presentations to present, to create a PowerPoint and prepare a formal presentation for the rest of their section. Students presented to their own class to avoid too much anxiety. Students were also given a model PowerPoint to access, and what here we were trying to do was give students just a notion of what they could include in a PowerPoint and how they might decide to construct it. So, for example, they had to have an introduction, they had to have slides that supported the content of their presentation, made sure that they had a conclusion and some sort of reference list. The other part of the assessment was the career website. Students had to use Macromedia Dreamweaver, which was part of their computing course requirements, and any multimedia software program that they chose to use. Some students were, for example, dab hands at Flash. They then designed and built a career website. Every week for 10 weeks, students, for example, they would write their CV, they'd write their autobiography, they would go and do the career interviews. So it was all cumulative over the 10 weeks, and the information and findings from those activities then formed part of the career website. The students, of course, also had access to a rubric which showed them exactly how they'd been marked. Focus was on aspects such as plagiarism or lack of it. So students were marked by their English teachers for their English, for paraphrasing and summarising, for use of vocabulary. The math teachers would mark the math aspect, the Arabic aspects. The computer research skills and projects teachers would look at aspects such as the design. There was also a little bit of a mark there for imagination and creativity. So students who played safe and used the model intelligently would definitely pass and get a good grade, but students who just pushed out the boat a little further could definitely get an extremely good grade. The rubrics were worded and graded in such a way that students were able to access them and understand them quite easily. We also discussed them in class, in groups and in pairs, and found them a very effective tool. So having had a look at the CRISP course overall and the career project specifically, we asked ourselves the questions, does it work? 810 students over 4 years were involved in a study, as well as other stakeholders such as teachers. The students found some of the tasks quite difficult but quite challenging. They also saw the specific focus on meta skills, and also believed that a lot of the skills that they were learning had real world relevance, that they would actually leave college, graduate from college and use the skills, and found this extremely motivational. The tools provided for scaffolding, again, they found very, very effective. Specific policies such as zero tolerance towards plagiarism had a very strong effect. So for example, in this chart, the semester 1 website, 70% of students didn't plagiarize, which was pretty good. But in the semester 2 website, where students had had a chance to look at their zero grades and improve, we had an 85% of students who didn't plagiarize. We also had a very strict late handing in policy, whereby students received a reduction in grades for each day that a piece of work was late. Did students find this a fair way of grading their work? 87% of students agreed that the teachers had graded their work. So moving on to the significance of these findings. Obviously they're very brief. There are limitations of reliability, validity and generalizability. However, we did see the role of the teacher and the students alter. It became much more student-centered. Students were definitely supported in their transition from reliance on the teacher to a much more self-directed learning. They also found the issue of choice a great motivation. We will continue to improve the CRISP course and continue to carry out the research. But in particular, we're keen to focus on the learners and how they learn. Many thanks for listening to this video, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me at the address on this slide.